I think the biggest thing I took away from this movie is just how much you get in return by investing in window blinds. The Woman in the Window. So The Woman in the Window is the latest original movie released by Netflix. It's about a lady, she has this phobia of going outside. She's also a nosy neighbor, so she watches people come and go throughout the neighborhood, and she sees a crime happen and she investigates. I feel like this is one of those movies that you really have to be patient with. The first quarter of the film is filled with a lot of dead air. Majority of that time is spent watching the main character pop pills and get drunk majority of the time. And there's really not a lot of character development, and there's really not a lot of story that's being developed as well. This type of premise usually makes for a bomb movie, but with her just being the only person in the house, it kind of gets real boring real quick. As things go on, it feels like this movie had two different plots that they kind of wanted to go down. On one hand, it felt like they were going down the path of this being a murder mystery, but then they would switch and make it more about her being this nosy neighbor and kind of make her look crazy. I thought the writing and dialogue style of this movie really reminded me of shows like A Series of Unfortunate Events, or something that you'll see played out in a play or on stage. There'd be people finishing each other's sentences, and then they would zoom in on one particular character and then black out as if you were watching somebody on stage. You have Amy Adams. She plays the main character in this movie. She's this counselor slash person who has a phobia of going outside. I actually didn't know this type of phobia existed until I watched this movie. So hats off to you, Netflix. When we're first introduced to her character, she does a really good job at playing that nosy neighbor character. We see her watching people from the window, calling the police, and all in all, she's a glorified Karen majority of the time. We're introduced to her as a nosy neighbor, but we end up loving her and feeling bad for her towards the end, in my opinion. She's definitely a recluse, but the only issue I had about her character is I didn't really understand why they gave her the job of being this child psychiatrist. She doesn't really do any of that in this movie, and she has a phobia of going outside. So how is she making money? Virtual learning? I also like Gary Oldman in this movie. He's Mr. Chameleon. He plays the neighbor across the street that she's watching with a vengeance. They don't really use him a lot in this movie, but when he does get screen time, it's definitely quality. You remember his lines and he puts in a performance. As the movie progressed, I ended up being more interested. They give you the impression that the main character is going crazy, and you kind of start to wonder who's telling the truth, who's lying, and who's really the crazy one in the movie. Listening to Amy Adams' character talk out loud, she definitely sounds crazy, and she gives off that persona of the crazy cat lady down the road. And they really capture that very well. I feel like they really tug you in different directions throughout this film. There were times where I was frustrated with the main character. There were times where I felt bad for her. And then there were times where I was like, this lady's crazy. And her decision making was quite suspect at times. Once they hit the climax of the movie, it really switches a little more as well. It goes from being this on-stage play-like movie to something similar to Bates Motel or Psycho. And I really liked how they captured that. It gave me vintage vibes, and I was more interested once the movie hit to that point. All in all, I think this movie was okay. It has a slow start, the peak of the movie is interesting, and then they round off at the end. I think Netflix managed to bring everything home quite well. The ending isn't suspect, and I think everything made sense. If you're into movies like Dangerous Lies or Disturbia with Shia LaBeouf, then I think you'll like this movie. I'd say The Woman in the Window is a good movie to catch when you can. Have you seen The Woman in the Window? What'd you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and attack the comment section. Bye-bye.